just seem to be upset at everything that Belichick's not getting in, right? But now, after this with Mike Chappell, you can easily see who the villain is. He wrote a big reasoning for voting for Bob Kraft and not voting for Bill Belichick. He voted for Bob Kraft because he thought, and he reasoned out, Bob Kraft's role in growing the NFL and what he did was a bigger thing, and he wanted to put Bob Kraft in, right? And Bob Kraft went in. Now, remember, there's a very complex voting pattern, which I think when you get 2 paragraphs into seeing it explained, you just tune out going, okay, I really, you lost me there in the second. Well, when you vote, there's 3 voters, and you rank your voting, and it's just so incredibly complicated that, number one, that should be a sign for the NFL that they need to fix that. But just so it's a very complicated voting pattern, and you can't vote for everybody.
To your point about Ocean's 11, you're either in or you're out right now.
Can we put in another guy? Can we put in another guy?
Think we need one
another
more?
guy?
Yeah.
One more? All right, we'll put in one more. So he says that I voted for Kraft because he wanted to put Kraft in. And then also talked about how Spygate was a thing for him. And, mentioned Deflategate a little bit, but Spygate was a big deal. And he still said at the end, I don't think that Belichick is going to be kept out. He'll probably get in next year. And that was his reasoning for how he voted the way he did. Now, he didn't say if he's going to vote for Belichick again next year, but he did say, I think Belichick's going to get in next year. So now that he says this, okay, now we've had 2 people say why, and they've covered the reasons. So now we can really look at the villains of why Belichick, if you think Belichick was wrong by not getting in. And just like an Agatha Christie movie, there's a lot of blame to go around. The most blame and the biggest villain is the process. Okay, because you can't simply vote for the players you think that will get in, and are they getting enough votes? Because unlike Major League Baseball, where here's your ballot and you mark the players and you count the votes, you have to get a certain number of votes and you vote in people, it's a little bit easier.
Well, and
right?
they're players. They're all players.
Yes. It's a little bit easier. The NFL has an incredibly complex voting. And again, read about, if you want to just search online, how does the voting go for the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Try to follow it after 2 paragraphs. You're going to go, okay, I don't understand. Just know that you can't vote for everybody. You have to vote for people. You could have 5 people that you think are incredibly valuable and should be Hall of Famers. Can't vote for all of them.
Well, but that's the thing, right? Is that 3 of them are players. One's a contributor and one's a coach. Yet you're supposed to rate them against each other.
Why are they in the same category? Why? Again,
that makes no sense. Like if you tell me I've got 5 players and I got to pick 3 of those, you know what? They're all players.
Yeah.
And then I debate their impact versus, hey, Robert Kraft's responsible for this becoming a $30 billion a year business. Yeah, he's kind of more important than the rest of these guys, right?
So understand that the majority of what's to blame is the process, because we have now heard 3 people, and one, because if you listen to the show, you heard from Jason Cole, Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, who joins us every week, and he made sure the first thing he told us was, here, let me just explain the process to you. And again, when he's explaining it, after like 20 seconds, like my eyes started to glaze. Like, okay, I get it. Like that's just how it goes, right? It's when a process is that bad. Okay, let's make sure that that's what's streamlined. Then you had Gregorian yesterday say the same thing, the process. I couldn't vote for everybody. I wanted to put the players in the Hall of Fame first. I know Belichick's going to get in at some point. And then you had the same thing today with Chappell saying, hey, I voted for Bob Kraft. I wanted to make sure he got in. And then on the second part was, okay, Spygate was a big deal for me. Now, of the voters, what we know so far, right, of the voters who have come out, any voter who has talked about the process, and this is people that voted for Bill Belichick, they have all brought up one of the first things they want to tell you is, let me explain the process to you.
Yep.
So the number one villain is the process, right? If you're mad at anything that Belichick doesn't get in, get mad at the process, because probably would have had enough votes around it if you had a guy like Gregorian yesterday who, if he had enough votes, would have voted for Belichick. It seemed like if I could have voted for the players and Belichick, I would have voted for him. But I couldn't do it because for some reason, stupidly, they're all together. So the number one thing, and if you want to talk about fixing a problem, if you think there's a problem, is that, okay, let's just address this part of it. Why is the voting so complex? Why is it limited the way it does? Why do you put people in certain categories the way? Why do you make that so difficult when the whole process is 50 people in a room and it's a debate, like it's a jury room? All right, we're going to take this to the jury. So number one, that's the biggest thing. And if you want to fix the problem, fix the voting process. So you can be mad at people for not voting, but fix the process.
Yeah, and I think it becomes a very good thing that it happens because it won't happen again because it's an obvious one. This is not a, well, maybe not. The idea of, yeah, he'll get in next year, to me, is the worst reasoning of it all. Like, is he a Hall of Famer or is he not?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to tell me out of 11, 13, 27, however many people did vote for him, because that's the fun part of it as well. It's like, no, I voted for him. Like all the anonymous polling is that
we still don't know Bill Polian's percentage of how he believes if he voted in
because
that, right?
he read a statement as if he were under bright lights. Yeah. And Sipowicz was coming after him yesterday. They verified him. Like, I don't believe you.
I voted for him. I am 95% sure that I voted for him. 95. You know what? Who can remember? It was so long ago. I don't even know. I think I voted for him.
But he went the extra step and tried to claim that he went to the Hall of Fame and said, hey, verify my vote.
Yeah.
Which, again, I think now he doth protest a bit too much. But neither here nor there at this point. It's an indictment on how this comes to pass when you've got some of the most staunch rivals and hated, folks that wanted to tear him apart and went after the Patriots that immediately just go, yeah, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. I mean, acknowledge it, but say, yeah, how do you keep him out of the Hall of Fame?
The other thing to be mad at, right, if you want to talk about the blame, right, and this is a hot take. The other thing to be mad, so the process number one, that's 70% of it. The other 30% you'll be mad at yourself. Because clearly when you see the voters and you hear them talk about things, it's generally not a big deal to them if a guy gets in the first time or the guy gets in the next year. You're still a Hall of Fame, right? That's the whole thing. Doesn't matter if you get in the first time, you're still a Hall of Famer. They don't say that about you. Still a Hall of Famer. Clearly, they don't really put much stock into, they want to try to get all the right people into the Hall of Fame, right? So when you step back for a second and see all the voters and go, okay, because Jason Cole, who joined us, talks about how he's already looking at guys like Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers. When are they going to get in? When they need the cycle to come through.
Yeah.
They're looking at how do we do this in the next few years? How do we make sure all the best players get in the next few years? So they don't really, you would think that a guy like Belichick would get in on the first ballot. You'd like to think that. But when you make the situation the way it is, they have to get a little creative with their votes. Okay, I want to make sure Roger Craig gets in. This is his last chance. Belichick can get in next year. Be mad at yourself if you're mad at, how is Belichick not a first ballot Hall of Famer? Okay, he's going to get in. Don't worry about it. Bill Belichick will be a Hall of Famer probably next year. He's going to get in. But be mad at yourself because the people that actually have the responsibility of voting for the Hall of Fame are thinking a bigger picture. It's not just 1 year, every year, we vote for the best people and that's it, right? If that was what it was, that's a different story. But it's, okay, who's this year? Who does that leave for next year? What does that leave for the veteran? Who do we need to group together? How do I vote here? It's a complex procedure. It's not just where these guys just hang out on the beach for 364 days and then show up one day. I'm going to argue for 45 minutes. We're going to have lunch and that's done.
No, I agree to it to a point, right? Of like, here, I've got my giant wall and I'm putting my grid together of the next 5 years of my voting patterns based on first years of eligibility and everything else. And obviously the change with coaches was last year when they changed the bylaws and made it so you only had to sit out a year. So that changes the math a little bit. So you could argue to some degree it's unfair to the Shanahans, Holmgrens, and other coaches, Tom Coughlin and his red face, waiting for their chance at the dais. So I get it, and you now have this inane thing of five people, one contributor, one coach, three players. But you're also still, I think the charge is to get the best people in. And what I always fear, and look, I'm not wishing ill on anybody, clearly. I just watched Steve McMichael be inducted when he was on a hospital bed in his final days. His numbers didn't change over 30 years. Mm-hmm. His impact on the game didn't change in 30 years. It's a thing I argued and stumped for years. Yes, partially the Bears' bias. The other is you're watching guys waltz in year after year. The human side of it, the mortality, and Jimmy Johnson was arguing that with the coach's side of it to a degree, which is why he was happy it went to the 1 year. But life comes at you fast, man. Yeah. So whenever you say we'll get around to that guy, I think that's some bad reasoning.
Right. And like I said, it's that, and that's why that's the fault. The main villain is the process. Second thing, understand that because of that, this is what happens. This is what happens, Larry.
Yeah.
This is what happens. So there's your blame. You want to know who your villains are? There's your villains for Bill Belichick.